Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. This is Sheryl Baker with Your Passport to Travel for our weekly travel talk, our monthly travel talk. We did have one 2 weeks ago because of the storm. So from now on, we'll do one once a month. And today I want to talk to you about let's go on safari. Um, Truly, this quote says it all. The only man I envy is the man who has not yet been to Africa, for he has so much to look forward to. Every time I send a client to Africa, they come back and say it was so much more than they could have ever imagined. So, did you know that a safari is on the top 10 things, is one of the top 10 things on people's bucket list? It is right there on number 5. 45% of people say that going on safari is on their bucket list. The funny thing is, on number 6, it is also 45% people want to ride in a hot air balloon. And literally, you can do both of those things in Africa. You can take a hot air balloon safari. So you can actually check off 2 things from your bucket list by going to Africa. So why go on safari? Again, I love this quote. If I have ever seen magic, it has been in Africa. I love it. That sums it up for me. I love, love, love Africa, all of Africa. I've traveled all over the world and I visited over 75 countries, and Africa and South Africa in particular is my favorite country. I've been to Africa now 6 times. I have visited South Africa, Rwanda, and Uganda, where I both hiked and tracked mountain gorillas, wild chimpanzees, and golden monkeys. That was pretty cool. I've been to Botswana on the Okavango Delta, where we did safaris in Makoros, which are carved out canoes. I've been to Zimbabwe and done the Victoria Falls, but we'll talk about. And also in Botswana, my favorite place in Botswana is the Chobe River. And again, we'll talk about that. I am actually going to Morocco in May of this year, and also to Kenya in November to add to my Africa specialization. And when you go, when you say safari, that means a lot of things, but actually that equates for me to over 75 game drives. And then every single game drive is different. When I send people or when I take a group, some people say, oh, I've been on 4 game drives. I think I've seen enough. Oh, no, never miss a game drive. You do not know what you're going to experience every single time you get in that Jeep. So that is one thing I totally tell all my clients, go every time you can. But you know what? There's so much more to Africa than just safari. Up here on the top is Cape Town, and then the Cape of Good Hope. There is a huge penguin colony around close to the Cape of Good Hope. This was interesting. This was in Robben Island. I happened to be there last time, while the same time that this man was doing a private tour, and this turned out to be Nelson Mandela's private jailer, who also became a great friend, and he wrote a book about him and Nelson Mandela's life, and I was able to have him sign my book, and so interesting. So, and then over here, this is the hot air balloon safari that I was telling you about. So just there are many, many things to do in Africa besides the safari. But why go on safari? This is actually a definition of safari. A safari is an overland journey to hunt or observe wild animals, especially in East or Southern Africa, particularly the so-called Big 5 game animals of Africa. This is what everybody wants to go and everybody wants to see. The lion, the leopard, the rhino, the elephant, and the Cape buffalo. A lot of people think the giraffe should be in there or the zebras, but no, these are the big five. And this was my last group that I took on safari. It was actually two multi-generational families, and both this lady here and this lady here, both of them were 89 when we went, and now both of them are 90, fixing to turn 91 this month. So there is not an age limit to go to Africa. If you can crawl in and out of the Jeep, you can go. There is an age limit on the younger kids because they usually don't want anybody younger than 12 because kids can get excited, jump up and down. And when you're out seeing those animals, literally they are right next to you and you don't want a kid screaming and yelling or crying. So they do limit, the child has to be able to control himself. Now, when I went on to Africa, my very first time, we had a couple with a 5-year-old child. And that kid was amazing. He was good as gold. But most 5-year-olds you would not take on safari. And I recommend that my clients, if you're doing, again, a multi-generational trip with grandkids, kids, and grandparents, I would start that at about 12 or older. So let's talk about these big five. Of course, there's the elephant. That's one of the things I love about the Chobe River. The Chobe River is the biggest group of elephants you will see in Africa are based up and down the Chobe River. And it is so amazing to be sitting there and in the evening when it's time for them to come and drink. Oh my goodness, over the tops of the hills come all of these elephants. You can't even count them. There's so many of them. So the elephant is on the big five. Then you've got the rhinos. And all of these pictures that I'm showing you are pictures that I took on my last safari. So this is how close you will get. This is how the caliber of animals you will see every time you go out. We were there when there were lots of babies, and this baby rhino, he was so excited. He would charge our Jeep and then he'd back up, and he'd charge and he'd back up. So the rhino definitely, again, is one of the big five. And then you've got these water buffaloes. And, you know, a lot of people say, why are they on the big five? Well, these guys are really, really fierce. And back when, and people still hunt, I shoot only with the camera. But these guys are fierce. And these are something that the hunters were, you know, really had to battle with. So they are part of the big five. And then, of course, you have the leopard and the lion. These guys, they're so majestic. And they're so, like, this was a baby. There were a boy and a girl cub. And we caught them one day while mom was out hunting. And we spent hours just photographing them. And same with this guy. We were just going along, and there were two of them up. And the guides, it's amazing. The guides that sit on top of, in front of the Jeep, they have the best eyes ever. And they spotted, you know, this guy literally blends in, and they spotted him from hundreds of yards away and knew exactly where he was. So when I take a group on safari or to Africa, what does that look like? So we fly into Johannesburg. We usually stay 1 or 2 nights there. It's great to go to Soweto, see where Nelson Mandela was born and lived. I don't think there's more. I wouldn't stay in Johannesburg more than 2 days. It's just it's a gateway, but you know, it's not the safest African city. So literally I would stay 2 days to see that. And then you would get up and we would take a small plane into Kruger National Park or Sabi Sands. That's where the best game sighting is in South Africa. And we would spend the next 4 days at a game lodge. And at the game lodge, You do 2 game drives every day. You do one that starts about 6 in the morning and goes till about 9. You have coffee while you're out there, but then you come home to this huge breakfast. Then there's a second one that starts at 4 and it goes till about 8. Before you go out, you have lunch right after you have breakfast. And then you have tea right before you go out at 4 o'clock. And then you come back at 8 o'clock and then you have a full dinner. So literally your days are spent game drives. In between, you can relax at the pool, sleep, read, or eat. We do lots of eating out there. And when you're going to these trips, everything at the game drive is included in your price. It's like having an all-inclusive resort. Everything is priced included. So there's no nickel and diming and all that going on. So once we leave the game drive, we fly up to Victoria Falls to Zimbabwe. And while we're there, we'll take a tour of Victoria Falls, which is, of course, one of the 7 wonders of the world. We'll take a cruise on the Zambezi River. We'll have more game drives. And I love to take a day trip over to Botswana and the Chobe River. And once again, as I told you, it's the home of the largest concentration of elephants in Africa. And we spend about 3 days in this area. Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, again, a poor country in Africa. We're right across the river from Zambia, so you can go into Zambia also. At this time, you can also take a helicopter ride over the falls, which is amazing. You can just see animals crossing the river, huge not giraffes, but huge elephants swimming across the river, and elephants can really swim. And then I don't know if you know, but hippos actually walk on the bottom, but elephants actually swim. And so from the sky, you can see all of this happening, and then you can see the water just pouring over Victoria Falls, depending on what time of the year you go. There's the wet season and there's the dry season, but the fall never dries up completely. And then after we leave Victoria Falls, we fly down to Cape Town. And while we're in Cape Town, we will do the wine country tour. We can do a tour. We usually do a tour of the African coastline down to the Cape of Good Hope. We tour Robben Island, and we take the cable cars up to the top of Tabletop Mountain if the wind allows. So that's kind of when I take a group on safari myself, when I lead them, or when I send clients. This is usually what we do. You can switch the way you do it. You can start in Cape Town and then go to Victoria Falls, but this is the way I kind of like to keep it for the first time people going on safari in South Africa. After you've done this, then of course you can go to Kenya, you can go to Tanzania, you can go to Namibia. There's all other things you can do in Africa. So let's look at some pictures from the game drive. These are not the big 5, but these are absolutely amazing animals that you will see multiple times a day. Driving from the airport back to your game lodge for the first time, you'll see all of these, and people just I love watching my clients' faces when they come around the corner and there's a huge giraffe not more than 6 feet from the Jeep. I mean, it's just amazing. Something that a lot of people don't realize is that bird watching in Africa, there are so many different species of birds, and they are gorgeous. You could just go on a bird watching tour if you wanted to. Another thing that most people don't see is hippos out of the water. They usually don't come out of the water during the day. This one happened to be crossing from one pond to another. One of the reasons they stay underwater, if you can see their pink skin, they actually have really delicate skin that gets sunburned. So when you see them in the water, they're either covered in mud to protect their skin, or they're underwater all the way. So, and then their heads just stick up, they blow the air out, take a big breath, and they go back down. And that's all for their protection. Now, they do come out at night. In fact, they are one of the most dangerous animals at night. They can run really fast. And they come out once the sun goes down, and then they feed on grass all night long. And then, right before the sun comes up, they go back to their pond. And there are many African and people that have gotten killed by hippos at night. They are very, very dangerous. You don't once, and that's kind of when you go to the game lodge after dark, they will walk you to your room and you cannot leave your room because there are animals all around you. You'll hear the hippos right outside your doors eating grass. And I've had elephants knock against the wall when they were running. I mean, you are in a country that is full of wild animals, but then you can just lay there and hear them, and it's so cool. If you can't tell, I absolutely love Africa. I love everything about Africa. So let's look at some more pictures. So these are, I wanted to show you how close you actually get. So this is the giraffes right here. This is the leopard, literally probably 6 feet away. We had this cub come down the rock and come right over to our Jeep while Mama was sleeping. These are the two 89-year-old ladies that were with me last time, and just had a ball. In fact, they would love to go back. They were so excited about what they saw. They would love to go back with more family members. But you are up close and personal, and you are in this open Jeep. I've had 5 lions walk literally feet from me. I've had an elephant with his nose almost all the way up to my nose. Whatever you can imagine, you can. It's happened. And they tell you, okay, just sit still, don't move. And literally you don't move. And you just, for hours, you can sit there and watch. I think we watched these lion cubs probably a good hour. They only allow, like, when you're on there's about 6 people per Jeep. And you go out you have a guide that is your guide the whole time. And so if one guide finds something, he radios the other guides, and they take turns. There can be no more than 3 or 4 Jeeps there at a time with the animals. And then you have to leave and another Jeep comes. So they're very good stewards of their of nature, making sure that the animals are protected. But there's so much more that you do when you're there. So our guide explains to you, this was a huge rhino. No, this was not. This was a hippo that got into a fight, died. This was the hippo skull. It was showing us how it hinges and how, when they open their mouth so wide, that means get back, you're upsetting me. That's when those big mouths come open, is when they're trying to seem fierce, which they are, and letting you know you're getting a little too close to me. So you're learning as you are out there. That's why it's so great for kids too, teenagers and such. Now down here, this was interesting. This was after we found the 2 male lions. Literally right around the corner from here, we had a flat tire. So while they were getting ready to change the tire, we all had to get out. And then we had one guard with a gun guarding us in case the lions came. And then the other one changed the tire. So those are the kind of adventures that you have out there. Every night when we went out, we would have a drink out in the middle of nowhere while we were watching hippos or the giraffes or the elephants come down to have water. And this here is a wild African dog. Very, very interesting. And you don't see many of them. And we actually, again, we were there while the babies were there. So we got to find the den with all the babies. And so that was interesting too, and so fun to watch. And here's another baby. So we had baby leopards, baby lions, baby elephants. Oh my gosh, we saw these amazing baby giraffes, the African dogs. Everywhere you look, there were monkey babies. So September was a good time to go if you wanted to see babies. So basically, what does a game lodge? People are like, oh, I don't want to be in tents. I don't want to be, camping out. You're not. Sometimes you can be, but when I go, we go to these beautiful lodges that have real bathrooms and flushing toilets. Each one has its own private pool sometimes. And this was a villa we stayed in this last time, right here on the Zambezi River. And as you can see, it's wide open. So you would have guards that would walk the perimeter during the night to make sure no wild animals. Our rooms were off of this open air living room with doors and locks and everything. But the living room and kitchen was wide open. And so they would patrol and make sure, and they'd tell us the next morning, oh, we had an elephant that came by last night, or we had a couple of hippos. So you are not, you definitely are not roughing it. I had one client that said, I was in the military and we stayed in tents, and do not put me in any kind of tent because there are some gorgeous tent lodges. But for him, we made sure that he had solid walls. I particularly in the Okavanga Delta, I stayed in a tent lodge, and that's where the elephants, when they were playing, were knocking against the big beams, and you had the zip up windows, just like a tent, but glorified tent. Let me tell you, we had running water and bathrooms, and, and it was very nice. But there are those different kinds. You've got the tent kind, and then you also have these beautiful game lodges. Where almost all of our dinners were served outside. This was the breakfast area. So just depending on what you're wanting, you can basically have it all. The thing about the game lodges is they're only maybe 4 to 14 rooms. So they're all the ones I go to are all very small. And that's why I only take groups up to 14 people. Usually, but then there's other things we do. So this was Victoria Falls. We did the tour of the falls, and it didn't matter. But 2 of my ladies needed wheelchairs, so the company that I used supplied 2 strapping men to push them all up and down Victoria Falls on our tour in a wheelchair. So that is possible. This was the Zambezi River. We took a sunset cruise on the Zambezi River. This was down at the Cape of Good Hope, the southwesternmost point of the African continent. Right, this here and this. So there's other things that you will do on in Africa besides go on safari. And again, once we get down to Cape Town, we're doing a tour of the wine country. Oh, South African wine is amazing. There are vineyards everywhere. So we'll do a wine tasting if that's something that you're interested in. There's also a huge colony of penguins down there. You can also, like I said, this was Robben Island. We could do a tour of Robben Island. And when the winds are right, we can take a gondola all the way up to the top of Tabletop Mountain, which is, the views are spectacular. And anytime, especially now with COVID and people worrying about just social distancing and being safe, safaris are the way to go. You are literally out in the middle of nowhere. Most lodges, like I said, only have 1 to 14 rooms. The Jeeps usually only carry 6 people. You're in the open air, and it's a perfect multi-generational trip for, I would say, ages 12 to 99. Because of COVID, many people are realizing that now is the time to start checking off those things from their bucket list. And to have adventures before it's too late. And you know, it's really made people think. This last week alone, I've booked 8 trips because people are finally getting vaccinated and they're like, we want to go. We want to go do all the things we couldn't do for the last year, and now we realize, you know, how much we miss it. So your travel adventure starts now for Africa. It's something you really want to book a year in advance. In fact, you have to, again, because the lodges are so small, the game lodges, and there's many of them, but when you only have 4 to 14 rooms, and it's one of the top 5 bucket list items for most people, they fill up fast. So I am actually planning to take a group on safari in both April of 2020 and September of 2020. That's depending on the interest of my clients. We had one that was going September of 20. We had one going September of 2020 that, of course, got canceled. And then there wasn't enough time to book one because we didn't know what would happen in 2021. So I'm going to try to put together 2 for 2022, April and September. They last about 10 days, although you can add on to Johannesburg, you can add on in Cape Town, you fly through Qatar, which is close to Saudi Arabia. If you want to do see Dubai, there's other things you can add on if you choose. But the group that I put together is usually about 10 or 11 days and follows the itinerary that I talked about earlier. And just to recap what I do, of course, I do anniversary trips, multi-generational travel, group travel, private tours, river cruises, safaris, ocean cruising, custom design trip, and accompanied group trips. Safaris and river cruises are the 2 things that I actually go with my clients on. And that's usually, like I said, twice a year, I will actually go with the clients and take them and be the group leader. And again, I'm Sheryl Baker, your passport to travel. And do we have any questions? I can't hear. I'm sorry, I can't hear. There, can you repeat the question if there's a question?
What's the cost of going on one of these trips?
About without airfare, about 8,000 to 10,000 per person.
And that would be all inclusive plus airfare?
Yes, that covers all the tours, the game drives, the lodges, the airplane trips within Africa. Yeah.
What would the airfare be? What does it usually go for?
You know, it usually goes between, it depends on what, but if you're going coach, it usually goes about 1,200. If you're flying plus, it's about 3,000. If you're flying first class, believe it or not, it's about 10,000. I just booked it for my Kenya trip from Tampa. I found a deal that was 600. So it just depends. Right now, there's great deals because they're just trying to get people to start booking things for the future. So that's what I do. And I helping with your flights also. A lot of people also have points that they can use on flights. So that's usually something that we can work on. But normally it's between 1,200 and 1,500 for the flights if you're flying just coach.
Any other questions? I think that's it. Oh, are you located in Tampa? Is that right?
I'm in Largo outside of Tampa, but I have clients all over the United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a direct flight from Florida to Johannesburg?
From Florida to Johannesburg, is it a direct flight?
No, but there's just one stop. We're like when we go either to London and then London direct. But when we're flying to Kenya, we go from Tampa to Frankfurt and then Frankfurt to Nairobi. So usually there's one stop along the way. Either it's usually in, no matter where you go from, it's usually New York to Heathrow, and then on. Sometimes you stop in Qatar. It just depends on who you're flying and where.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, Sheryl, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, if anybody is interested, just shoot me an email, and I will send you information on the particular trips and the days and what it looks like for this new round for 2020.
Okay.
Basically, you would put down $1,000 deposit and then be able to pay it out. But that's that I have to have at least 10 to 14 people going to be able to make it to book it. So that's what, if you're interested, just let me know. I would love to tell you more about this particular trip that's coming up.
Of course, will do.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you, Sheryl.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well,
All right, who's going to
Are we
Africa?
going?
Who's going to Africa?